Chapter 6, Looping Part 4. Oh, my favorite loop. I love a for loop because a for loop is so easy and it takes a lot of the, it's 3 parts to every loop and it's tough to remember all of them. For loop puts them all in one place. A for loop is used when a definite number of loop iterations is required. So it's for count controlled loops, and it's super easy because it includes the initialization, the test, and the update all in one. Let's look at an example. It starts with the keyword for, and then for val equals 1. So val is our loop control variable. We're initializing it to 1. Semicolon. Val less than 11. That's our test. As long as val is less than 11, we're going to keep looping. Semicolon. And then plus plus val. We could also have val plus plus, as you've just seen. We could use the prefix or the postfix. In this case, plus plus val. That's where it gets updated. And that happens at the end of the loop. So val equals 1. 1 is less than 11, so we enter the loop and we print val. And then it goes back up and it increments val by 1, so val becomes 2. And we test, is 2 less than 11? It is, so we enter the loop and we print val. And then it goes back up and val gets incremented to 3. Is 3 less than 11? Yes, it is. We enter the loop, and so on until val becomes 11. When val becomes 11, the loop does not loop anymore. So what got printed? Think through for a minute. What did this loop cause to be printed? In one column, it caused 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 to be printed. We could have done this exact same thing with a while loop. And there's really no difference to them. Which one's better, a for loop or a while loop? Well, for loop's better because it's my favorite, but it can't be used for everything. It's just another tool in your toolbox. So you get to make a determination, which one do I want to use? If it's a count controlled loop, I hope that your brain tells you, oh, maybe I want to use a for loop here. So look at what we'd have to do if this was a while loop. We'd have to initialize val to 1. Then we have our while condition while val is less than 11. And then inside the loop, we'd have to have a loop body here with the braces, system.out.println val, and then plus plus val, and loop back up and test while val is less than 11. So both loops do exactly the same thing, but notice that the for loop combines the initialization, the test, and the update all into one line. We talked about that. Other uses for the 3 sections of a for loop: initialization, test, and update. We'll look at those nuances with and or later. You can leave one or more portions of the for loop empty, but you do need the semicolon. We'll take a look at those examples later too. So you can use the same loop control variable. You do use the same loop control variable in all 3 parts. So for example, for x equals 0, x less than, what is that, 100,000, plus plus x. Notice that we've used x in each expression. If you don't, then you're going to have some kind of logic error, if not a syntax error. And in this particular example, you see there's a semicolon at the end. So this for loop is doing absolutely nothing. It's just looping. And that's a way to just pause your program. Or you could use the sleep method. Either one will work. We'll see examples of when we want to pause a program later. We haven't had to do that yet, and we haven't seen any examples of where it would be appropriate just yet. There's one more loop to learn about in Java, and that is a post-test loop. A while loop and a for loop are pre-test loops because we test the loop control condition before entering the body of the loop. There's also a post-test loop which enters the loop and then checks the loop control condition at the end of the loop after it's already been executed once. Refer back to that priming read example where we want to get the user input and test it before we enter the loop. A post-test loop is a really good loop to use when you're getting input from the user. For example, when you're asking the user to enter their password. And then you check if they've entered the correct password. If they haven't, you go back up and you prompt them to do it again. So for example, the flow chart would look like this. You enter the loop body, you do whatever you have to do, and then you test the loop control variable. If it's false, you're done. If it's true, you go back up and loop again. The difference between a pre-test loop, the primary difference between a pre-test loop and a post-test loop, is that a post-test loop, the body of the loop will always execute at least once. So if you want to execute at least once, use a post-test loop, the do-while loop. Here's an example. Notice the do is highlighted. We enter the loop and do all this stuff, and then we prompt the user for the input and test to see if they entered 1. Notice we don't need the priming read here. We got rid of the response equals keyboard.nextInt before the loop because it happens at the bottom. We only need to put it once.